The voice of sharing during ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're with Grace at ASEAN Dailies. We deliver news from Southeast Asia. Now we are still talking about haze here. Apparently the haze situation in certain regions, of course it gets worse and worse. And it is just as bad, and if not worse for perhaps the residents in even South Sumatra, and namely Palembang, and the Raau, and the Pekanbaru, and other region when it comes to Indonesia. And according to an Indonesian official at the Pekanbaru District Communication Department, which is in Sumatra, there are a number of government offices which had been forced to close for about 2 weeks since last Monday. And in fact, even in Malaysia, until today, in fact, there will be schools that they are closed because of the haze, and it's just getting worse. But today in Malaysia, it seems a bit better than before. And if we talk about Indonesia again, according to them, again, they are saying that many are working in the government, that they are given sort of 2 weeks off due to haze. And the schools school children in a primary school and secondary schools, they were given about 1 month off. And it was also added by saying that the district governments also advised those working in the private sector to close all those businesses as well, and also to limit our outdoor activities. And when you see this index, air pollutant index, which recorded a quite dangerous level, reaching up to about 335, it forced the Sultan Sarif Qasim, the airport, to be closed as well. So there are lots of areas and buildings that are affected, not only the human beings, but then by closing all those business sectors and as well as institutions as well. And visibility in the streets of Padang is around 50 meters, and the worst is 20 meters only, around 7:30 a.m. till 8:30 a.m., although it improves in the afternoon. And then when you see all those maps that are given on the Google, and even in the map here, you see all those spots that are affected, and it's those regions, especially Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. So when it comes to haze, it's not just something new or air pollution that has happened recently. It's been going around for years, but then just this year hits one of the worst case in those regions. So we'll take another short break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about political side of Southeast Asia. So stay tuned.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Grace.
And we are continuing our discussion on Southeast Asia. Earlier on, Grace, my colleague, has discussed more about what's happening, the updates on haze situation in Malaysia. But why? There is not really an ASEAN solidarity when it comes to haze. And finding a permanent solution to combat haze from reoccurring should actually be a regional priority, not just a state priority. I mean, putting too much emphasis on this is Indonesia's role rather than Southeast Asian role seems to be not effective at all.
Well, to be honest, when it comes to solution to haze, it's not entirely Indonesia's fault, and it's something that we've been talking about. But then among this regional region, who has the most responsibility here? We need to talk about all those companies who has been producing all those toxic and also causing the air pollution here. So, of course, a lot of people are raising questions in where is the ASEAN
standing at this point when it comes to haze. And of course, Singapore and Malaysia, Indonesia, all those neighboring countries, they have been tackling the haze case, but then it's just that it's just getting worse. So we have to fall back to the companies, and also in fact, Singapore wanted to sue all those companies for who has causing all this pollution so far.
Mm-hmm. And according to the Southeast Asia National Human Rights Institutions Forum, which was held in Kuala Lumpur recently, they recommended that all ASEAN member states to give due consideration to the perennial haze dilemma in this region. In fact, Singapore, for one, has made numerous offers to assist the ASEAN neighbor Indonesia, but the thing about Indonesia is maybe they have a bit of an ego because they keep on rejecting Singapore's assistance.
Well, it will definitely affect the relationship among this region, especially Singapore and Indonesia. And then there should be some resolving this problem properly by underlining the Singapore's government's the seriousness when it comes to haze. And then Singapore in fact has taken a lot of steps to solve this air pollutant problem. And they said we stand ready to assist Indonesia in combating the fires. And last year, they even introduced the resolution to allow us to prosecute the companies found to be causing or contributing to the haze. And this is something that we've been talking about as well. So why is Indonesia rejecting all our suggestion or even the assistance towards the haze? That's another question.
Yeah, I think this is government to government relations. Unfortunately, in Southeast Asia, you have to respect individual nation state due to the non-interference policy. On the other hand, I think grassroots and the public can play a larger role. According to One News in today's online, consumers NGO take up fight against haze, but it is a long trudge. And can consumer power actually, address the problem of haze? And I think we can. Maybe it's not as fast, but if you look at initiatives such as the Worldwide Fund for Nature or WWF Singapore and the Singapore Environment Council, as well as groups that were formed in recent years in response to the haze problem, has come out in full force, urging consumer and businesses to play their part in the fight.
And then when you see there all those activities and also the fight they have been created or against the haze, that happens mostly in social media as well. And a lot of groups and individuals, they are talking about haze and also boycotting against all those companies which are responsible for the forest fires, especially in Indonesia. But the question is, can actually consumer power snuff out the decade-long pollution problem? Can we actually come up with the solution? But when you talk about the reality, well, we can come up with voices to send our messages to the government or even the higher authorities. But however, this whole collective power needs to put more pressure for companies to change their mindset and their ways to produce their own certain products.
Well, the thing is, none of us really know which company is responsible. Partly because it's not being widely publicized. A lot of it are hearsay. So by chance, if consumers want to boycott, they probably would go for the option of boycotting anything that is produced by palm oil or not being certified by the European standard of the roundtable for the palm oil certification.
And then Singapore has been pretty much very vocal about this haze problems there. And in fact, when you see all the social media, a lot of people are wearing masks, and that's also a sign of boycotting haze pollution at the moment.
wearing masks is a boycotting.
And then to go against the haze sort of elimination action to come up with a solution for the air pollutant.
So according to this National University of Singapore, economist and former nominated member of parliament Ivan Ping in Singapore also, he said that it is like a catch-22 situation. So the problem is, there's a need to overcome the initial hurdle of driving consumer demand for sustainably produced goods before businesses can align their practices accordingly, which is true because you cannot force companies to be sustainable. Things has to be slow, as in like the process has to be step by step, maybe even baby steps, in a way that I think that's what he meant. As consumers, you can always boycott, but the problem is if there's no greater alternatives, companies will just go on with the usual.
Well, that's very true. And also there are lots of companies, in fact, who are against all this haze, and they come up with their own solutions, such as like perhaps less using palm oils, and also come up with the green, environmental friendly products. But then the companies, the power of these companies are still lacking in terms of coming with a solution for it. They're just but at this point, what we need is conferences, perhaps the more education, and also sort of enforcement towards the companies who's been producing all these products.
Anyway, moving on to another news about ASEAN integration. Will it prompt floods of migrants? This is what being said by a senior investigator at Rights Group Ad Hoc. The person warned that the regional economic integration actually will lead to a flood of Cambodians migrating elsewhere in search for jobs that pay better than those at home. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's not really necessarily a bad thing.
Well, having Cambodians going somewhere away from their country, well, it tells something about the country, the status at the moment.
The economic status, right?
Yeah, the status there, where when we think about the Cambodia, one of the things that hit our mind is poverty, and of course that really makes people to leave and even to seek illegal work in the region. But also they can lead to slave-like conditions in the numerous industries, such as a garment or other like even agriculture industries, that will definitely affect in terms of even treating those people from Cambodia is even unfair. But when you talk about the ASEAN as a whole community that was formed for the countries in the region to help each other, such as all these issues, they really need to tackle and perhaps should be abolished. This is according to Ms. Moni. And then at ASEAN ministerial meeting in Malaysia, which was held in last week, all those representatives from each of 10 member states, they adopted the declaration against the transnational crimes, including trafficking as well.
I think it will be great for Cambodians. And it will be even better for Cambodia, because when wages are stagnant, existing companies in Cambodia, they have to force themselves to increase the wages in order for them to be able to compete with the human resources demand from other countries. And I think it's a great thing that this is happening. Although, of course, from a national point of view, it might not be good for Cambodia. Then you have all the good people going out of the country, serving other countries. Anyway, when the free flow of goods and services become part of ASEAN, Cambodian people will go to work abroad, like water breaking the dam. That's a nice analogy to put in. Moving on to another news, which is also about migration, but this time in Indonesia. But Indonesia is actually taking a positive approach when it comes to migration, because for so long they have been making money out of migrant workers working abroad as maids. So the Agency for Placement and Protection of Indonesian Migrant Workers, or known as BNP2TKI, has estimated remittance revenue from Indonesia's migrant workers will grow 19% this year as the government continue to develop programs improving financial literacy among migrant workers.
Well, this is something that has been contributing to the economic side of Indonesia as well. And like you mentioned before, they are very much positive about this whole the programs going on. And then as for December, all this remittance can reach about $10 billion. And if the government focuses on the training candidates of migrant workers to improve their financial literacy, including the requiring them to open a bank account even under their name before they depart, which is one of the steps that they really need to do as to protect themselves from protecting themselves from getting the money away from themselves unfairly, and also it is also educating them to keep their account safe under their names, of course. And it'll be much better if they can empower the families, of course, in the productive investment as well, because when it comes to the laboring agency or even such programs, it's not only talking about one person, it affects the whole family or relatives there. So it is also important to empower the whole community. So if Indonesia is really going ahead with this plan, definitely it will bring a lot of positivity towards the economic side.
Empowerment is definitely important, especially you have complaints of abuse. Considering as low-skilled workers, many migrant workers from Indonesia, especially domestic helpers, because that's the main export from Indonesia's human resource, suffered abuses from their employers, with a number of cases actually coming from countries like the Middle East. And with that, I think Indonesia as a country should also strengthen its law and its diplomatic relations with this country and ensure that their people are protected overseas. So there's a lot of things that needs to be done, of course, but definitely if it's done well, it would not only profit the economy of Indonesia, but also make a win-win situation for the workers themselves. Anyway, we'll take one short break. When we return, we'll discuss further on the economic side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, welcome back. This is Arlene.
You're with Grace.
So, the biggest news happening yesterday was about TPP.
Yes.
Of course, later on we will discuss more about how TPP has been finally signed by all the member countries that has agreed upon TPP. But on the other hand, Taiwan, they are not part of TPP, but they actually want to be part of TPP and RCEP. In fact, Taiwanese president is calling for all-out efforts to join these two free trade partnership. It's like a mega trade, actually bigger than the previous free trade agreement that we ever seen.
Like you mentioned, President Ma Ying-jeou of Taiwan, he just mentioned at the meeting that as a country dependent on the trade to grow its economy part, the country Taiwan must not miss out this opportunity to join a TPP as well as RCEP. And then he addressed clearly at the Assembly of National Association of SME. And then he also mentioned that the country does not have any diplomatic relations with most of its leading trade partners, and also that adding that it is far more difficult to sign free trade agreement with these trade partners than doing business with them. So he has seen the positive and also benefits from having all these trade agreements going on. And of course, like you mentioned, that this country is not included. Maybe perhaps that's why he wants to really go for signing this free trade agreement with the 5 Central American countries, and also the investment cooperation agreement with Japan, and economic cooperation pacts with Singapore and New Zealand.
And the biggest problem with Taiwan now, Taiwan has done tremendous effort in making its economy more robust and actually most of the countries in Southeast Asia and in the Asia Pacific. I really admire Taiwan as a nation, as an economic power as well. It's just a small dot next to China. But the thing about Taiwan is, it's a big on the backside when it comes to diplomatic relations, and there's a huge reason for it. Partly is because of China, and partly because Taiwan does not have that diplomatic strength compared to other countries in the Asian region. And because it doesn't have that strength, I think what Taiwan needs to do right now is to work on its relationship with China. It has been going on quite well, according to the president of Taiwan, that the Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement between Taipei and Beijing has also enabled Taiwanese businesses to enjoy preferential tariff rates on goods exported to China. But this is just between Taiwan and China, not towards the global market. They still need to pay lots and lots of tariffs.
And then when you talk about the TPP and RCEP, since the member states of all these two trade agreements as a whole accounts for 70% of Taiwan's export market. And that's why the also president mentioned that it is a major task that this nation should make an all-out effort to accomplish and also to be able to join these trade agreements.
And talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement, finally the deal is reached. I actually read the news yesterday. The moment it was being reached, my friends was sharing it all over the social media, and it was quite a shock because a lot of the people did not expect it to be signed that soon. But it's also an indication that Obama's time is up. You know, the next general election is just around the corner for the US. So Obama, this is like the icing of the cake for President Barack Obama. For signing the deal or for being able to conclude the deal itself, meaning that he has been successful at rivaling China's RCEP. And it's a great thing in a way for the US, but a lot of people are still unconvinced the TPP will do great for the economy of the world or even for people, individual people.
Because a lot of people are especially worrying about losing their jobs when it comes to under TPP agreement. Also because there will be a lot of standardized policies among these countries that they maybe seem very unfair on certain countries. However, it's just a matter of adapting certain policies according to what it is agreed. And of course, it was done under the America. And when we talk about this trade agreement, the TPP was heavily influenced by America, and RCEP was from China. So like we had a lot of questions. Where do we stand? Where do certain countries to stand between those two? But it was just out of sudden that we knew the TPP was going to be concluded soon, but we didn't expect this soon from hearing from the USA. Well, there will be a certain disadvantages or perhaps a sort of unfair treatment from this agreement. However, when you see the far future or even the looking at the really bigger picture, TPP perhaps can bring the huge impact on the economic part into those regions especially.
I do believe there are two sides of the story when it comes to the TPP agreement. The same goes with other kind of trade deals and free trade agreements. The good thing about this is finally it is over, and Malaysia was part of the Malaysia, including Korea actually, were part of the negotiation team. That means if you were part of the negotiation process, you're able to negotiate what's your term. Everyone has different terms, as in like they get different benefits or they give up different things. They have to compromise different areas. And the Malaysian government, according to the Malaysian International Trade Ministry, they released a statement even yesterday that they would definitely work towards agreement that will benefit Malaysia, and it will not jeopardize certain rights in Malaysia, like the Bumiputra rights, for example. And also another thing is, just because they agreed and signed doesn't mean it's ratified. That means doesn't mean that we will straight away have TPP. It still needs to be passed in each country's Congress or Parliament. So our member of parliaments play an important role at ensuring whether TPP should be passed or not.
For sure, and I hope that, like you mentioned, it's a long process to be adapted to this agreement. But now that the TPP is finally concluded, those countries who are involved in this really need to buckle up to be able to reach certain goals and also the outcome from all this Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement.
So moving on to another news, also about ASEAN. This time is an ASEAN award recognizing vital transport and logistics role. Just a bit of a brief news on this particular award. Is called the ASEAN Transport and Logistics Award, or ATLAS 2015, brought together heavyweights in the freight forwarders industry to foster interconnectivity while saluting major players in the ASEAN region.
So this logistics provides the backbone and the supply chain, and this one is also recognized as a key to support the trade, facilitate the business efficiencies, as well as economic growth, while strengthening their competitiveness as well. And their strategic location and steady economic growth, good regional linkages, and a strong transport infrastructures, they are able to position this as a good ideal regional logistics gateway. So hope that this ASEAN-centric event, it was held on the September 2nd. They saw that this tripartite celebration involving this award ceremony, and then also, of course, there was Miss Southeast Asia Tourism Ambassadors in 2015 as well. So this plays quite an important role when it comes to logistic companies, especially to examine this impact of AEC, and then especially discussing the future growth while also facilitating this the relationship with other countries as well.
We'll take a short break. When we return, we will conclude with the socio-cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Shadows then into the street, following the water. There's a bearded man paddling in his canoe. Looks as if he has come all the way from the Cayman Islands. These canals, it seems, they'll go in circles. Places look the same, and we're the only difference. The wind is in your hair, it's covering my view. I'm holding on to you, and I might be hard until tomorrow. Could see, if only they had been here, they would understand how someone could have chosen to go the length I've gone, to spend just one day riding, holding on to you. I never thought it would be this clear.
Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, you're with Grace.
So, talking about social-cultural side of Southeast Asia, you would never think about a white-spotted cow. But according to a Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences and Uppsala University researchers, they have in an international collaboration with Bogor Agriculture University in Indonesia to reach result of their research, which can be used to preserve threatened white-spotted buffalo, which is a kind of cow but it's bigger.
And then, well, the results also have identified two independent mutations in this MITF gene that underlying this white spotted coat color in the swamp buffalo. And this is a very good collaboration with researchers in Indonesia investigated the genetics underlying the white spotted coat color Indonesia swamp buffaloes by performing this comparison between white spotted and a normally colored brown buffaloes as well.
Yeah, I never actually seen white spotted buffalo. So this is something interesting, and it's also a great cultural importance as they are considered holy and are sacrificed in funeral ceremonies. So when an individual has passed away, the sacrifice of the buffaloes is considered as being necessary for a safe ride to heaven. The cultural traditions of sacrificing white-spotted buffaloes is also a major attraction for tourism and therefore also of economically importance. So there you go.
It's just like how when we are just commenting on this news, it reminds me of how tigers also have like white lion and white tigers, and how precious they are right now, because it's because of their genetic the characteristics that they have all those mutation in their body that made them change their colors, and that just happened to have the same thing to this buffalo, and that is also collaboration between these several universities. And then it's good to hear that it was a successful collaboration, and then it is also positive news that they can attract a lot of tourists from outside.
But I wish that they are not being sacrificed. It looks so adorable, white spotted buffaloes. Anyway, to end our news today, we will discuss about the ASEAN Cultural Festival to foster sharing and learning in Malaysia.
Well, sharing is caring. That's what everybody is saying. And in fact, based on this, the phrase, the National Culture and Art Department (JKKN) is organizing ASEAN-themed cultural event. And the KL has always been really emphasizing on this culture and event, especially this year. The city will be the location of Festival of ASEAN Cultural Expression 2015 from October 15th to 20th at the Central Court of NU Central Shopping Mall.
That's amazing. I would definitely want to look at it. I mean, just pay a visit, because Phase 2015 will also promote the ASEAN Village concept, where it will feature 3 segments for the participant and public involvement, such as arts, traditional games, and visual handcrafts arts. I think it will be a fun time for families to be exposed and to learn and be aware of Southeast Asia.
And also, JKKN, we also like to invite the public to join the video teaser, which is called a Phase 2015 campaign, where all the people will get to share their videos taken at the festival and upload them on the festival official Facebook page. So there is also a total of 1,000 lucky video uploaders who receive the beauty product from the certain companies as well. So looking forward to attending this festival soon.
Definitely. And with that, thank you for listening to us today. Of course, you can always listen to us on the go via our mobile app. You just download Durian ASEAN at any app stores. And of course, you can listen to us live, durianasian.com, or you can listen to us via our podcast in our YouTube channel, Durian ASEAN and Durian ASEAN TV.
And as well as don't forget to visit our social media channels other than the YouTube, which are Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And do leave your comments. Your comments are always welcome.